Welcome to this episode of The Wisdom of Paramahansa Yogananda, brought to you by Self-Realization Fellowship, where each week you can receive inspiration and guidance from Paramahansa Yogananda's Kriya Yoga teachings. The subject of this episode is Cultivating a Close Relationship with God by Brother Devananda.
This morning we're going to talk about cultivating a closer relationship with God. There was a 7-year-old girl named Katie who was found in a pool, the family pool. She was floating there and they didn't know how long she'd been in there. She had drowned. So they pulled her out and somehow they were able to revive her. They called 911. She was rushed to the hospital. They wanted to see if there was any damage, physical or mental damage, because of not having enough oxygen. And the doctor at one point came in and came to try to find out, and she started talking about that she had been with the Heavenly Father. She had been on the lap of God as the Father aspect of God, and He had His arms wrapped around her, and she felt tremendous love and safety, and she was very happy. And they had a conversation. And after a while, God told her, "You need to go back. This is not your time. You're going to have to go back, Katie." She said, "No, I want to stay here with you." And so He said, "Well, but don't you think your mother and father and your brother and sister will miss you?" And then she realized, yes, they would miss me. And immediately she awoke, having been revived from that experience. And so the doctor, by the way, it completely changed his life. He began to do research. This was such a profound experience because this little girl couldn't have made this up. It was a profound experience, and he became a researcher for near-death experience and has written many books. But the thing is that Guruji said, first, you must have a right concept of God, a definite idea through which you can form a relationship with Him. And then you must meditate and pray until that mental conception becomes changed into actual perception. Then you will know Him. If you persist, the Lord will come. So we all have our own personal experience of God. Some of us, it's more of an abstract experience. Some of it is more personal. You may think of God as father or mother. It doesn't matter. But God will come to you in that form. Guruji talks about by your devotion's frost, God is frozen into a form. And people have experiences of Divine Mother, God, Cosmic Mother, or other manifestations. Some of us, when I first began to meditate, I was so turned off because of the way, the religion I was raised in, I was turned off to the idea of God. I wasn't sure God existed. And when I sat to meditate and practice the techniques that our guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, has given, I practiced Hong Sa, I began to feel such peace, such upliftment that I thought, and he had said, well, this is a manifestation of God's presence. And I thought, well, this isn't so bad. I think this is okay. If God is peace and I was feeling love and joy, then I'm okay with this. I think then I could relate. So it was a little more abstract initially for me. And I was able to, some people think of it as the infinite. God is the infinite intelligence, and that's okay if that appeals to you. There's a scientist I was reading about, and he ended up going into a coma. He had something happen in his brain, and he went into a coma. And he had a profound experience of feeling loved. And he had drifted away from any religion. He got into medicine, and then he's actually a neurosurgeon, and he had gotten into just thinking whatever I can see is real and the other. And it all became very vague, the idea of a divine intelligence, that God exists. And so in this experience, he began to feel this love and this divine intelligence and love coming into him. And he said that there's nothing he could do that would ever change that. That he was unconditionally loved no matter what happened. He could never reverse that by some behavior. And he heard this sound, this profound sound, and later, because of research, he realized it was the Om. He was hearing God manifesting as the sound, the cosmic sound of Om. So it's an interesting thing. Sometimes it's hard for us to believe that God loves everyone, or we've heard this, the saints down the ages have said God loves all of us, but sometimes you think, yeah, but me, I don't know. I might make an exception for me. I'm not perfect. I don't know if you've ever had that, but for me it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not perfect. Sometimes we get this idea that I have to be really good before I could possibly follow a spiritual path or be accepted and loved by God, which is not true. We're sort of, as we grow up, we're judged so much. In school, we're graded. Yes, you're good. This was bad. And so we begin to think in terms of that I have to be really good in order to be acceptable. And it's not true. I've told you before about Brother Lawrence, this 16th century monk in Paris. And he'd been a foot soldier before he became a monk. But he'd had a spiritual experience, and so he went into the ashram, into this monastery. But he felt that he just felt so bad about, I think, things that he had done before, that when he prayed, he would just feel really bad about it. And he finally reached a point where he said, I'm just gonna love God. I'm just gonna love God. I love Jesus. I'm just gonna love. And I don't care if I'm lost, I am going to love. And so he started talking to God when he was working and when he was doing different things. He was a cook in this monastery. And, he'd turn a pancake over and he would thank God for the opportunity to serve him and his brothers. And he completely transformed his consciousness. Began to feel so much love pouring into him, he realized that he was loved. So, I don't know, I think it's good to look at these things and to keep working at deepening our relationship with God. In the autobiography of a yogi, Guruji talks about he had lost his mother when he was, I think, 10, something like that. And so he was really missing his mother. But in Bengal, the mother Kali is the form of God worshipped. And he had gone to see this saint, Master Mahashai. And when he went up there to see him, Master Mahashai was talking to God, to Divine Mother. And his head was back, and he was in a higher state. He was talking to Divine Mother. And he said, little sir, he told him that I'm talking to my Divine Mother. Please be seated. And this young boy, Mukunda, threw himself at his feet. And he said, ask her, because he felt, okay, this person knows God, knows the Divine Mother. Ask her if I find any favor. Am I loved? It's basically what he was saying. And this saint refused initially, but finally he said, I will ask her. Now, someone that's a saint that's connected like that has power and has connection. So that night, our guru had a vision of the Divine Mother, and he said, haloed in splendor, the Divine Mother stood before me. Her face tenderly smiling was beauty itself. And he asked her, do you love me? We hear this, but, God is love. But he wanted to know, do you love me? And she said, always have I loved thee, ever shall I love thee. And then disappeared. When I came into the order as a young man, Sri Dayamata was the president for many, many years. And in the 70s and 80s, I was present, often chanting for her, but I was present when she would go into an ecstatic state. And as she'd be in the front, she'd be leading the meditation, but sometimes she would just slip into this higher state. And she'd start talking to Divine Mother. And they'd turn up her microphone so we could all hear it. And she was completely oblivious of who was there. And she would start talking, and with such love in her heart, like a child to the mother, and really talking to Divine Mother in a very personal, loving way. And the whole place, the monks and nuns, would be so inspired by this, lifted up. And for me, it was an example. First of all, someone can have a relationship with God that's deep. She must have worked for this, and that maybe I can work at this relationship and have a closer connection with the divine. In the Only Love book that we have, there's a picture of her in ecstasy. She's in samadhi. And there's footage of her in India. Some of you may have seen it, but they're chanting. It's a big kirtan. And there's someone on either side of her to keep her from, if she went into ecstasy, she might fall over. And so they're trying to, Mrinalima is one of these people. They had someone on each side to keep her from falling over, from going into ecstasy. Guruji said, cultivate his relationship. It is possible to know God as well as you know your dearest friend. That's the truth. That is the truth. And he says, thou, O God, art invisible, impersonal, unknown, and unknowable, and yet I believe that by my devotion's frost, thou canst be frozen into a form. And he says, God can be persuaded to take a personal form by your intense devotion. If you have a lake, if you've been in the Sierras or someplace where there's a lake and it's very still, in the morning hours or at night sometimes a lake will become very still. There's no wind. If you take two boats and you put them in the middle in the lake, but you don't tie them together, you just put them together, there doesn't seem to be any reason for them to separate. So at night, if you do that, the next morning, they will be, because there are subtle currents, those boats will begin to separate and be separated from each other. And that's how it is with personal relationships, friendships, and with God. We have to keep cultivating a relationship with God and cultivate the relationships with the people around us. Otherwise, you'll notice if you never talk or if it's just mindlessly, hi, how are you fine, and then you're not really connecting, gradually you might be living around someone, but you're no longer connected. Emotionally, you're very distant from each other. A man named Tom and his wife Helen, they had been married for maybe 12, 13, 14 years. They had 3 kids. And his wife, after 13 years, she told him when they were alone, she says, we're not very connected anymore. And he didn't know what she was talking about. She said, we're not connected. You never really connect with me anymore. You're very distant. Physically we're here, but you're not. You're busy doing other things, and you don't seem to care about me. And this shocked him because he thought, well, I'm working so hard for the family. I tried to take care of things. And so he really thought, well, maybe she's got a problem. It's not my problem. It's her problem. A week later, he happened to be reading something, and his wife was at the dresser with a mirror. And she just said to him, I've just noticed I have some streaks of gray coming into my hair. What do you think? Do you think it would be a good thing for me to color my hair so that it hides the gray? And he was busy reading, and he said, I don't know, whatever you think. And he looked up just in time to see the hurt in her eyes. She was very hurt by his lack of caring. She was being vulnerable with him, saying, look at this, and he didn't seem to care. And then he realized, this is what she's talking about. And so he made up his mind. He had heard that, well, you don't have to feel love to be loving. You can perform loving actions, and even if you're not feeling it, and eventually you will feel love. And so he began to think in terms of, okay, well, I've got to start doing loving things. About a week later, Helen asked him after dinner, would you like to go for a walk with me? She was trying to connect. And he was just about to say, are you kidding? No, I want to relax. I've had a busy day. I want to relax. But he caught himself. He said, oh, yes, I would love to. He was forcing himself, to be. And they ended up talking about the children, talking about their hopes and dreams and their concerns for the future. And Tom ended up really enjoying it, and so did Helen. So Tom made a weekly appointment with his wife, a date night. And the grandparents would watch the kids, and he would go out with her. And he went where she wanted to go, her restaurant, not necessarily what he wanted all the time. Went to the movie she wanted to see. He brought her up to a hilltop out in the country to look at the sunset. So the relationship started to improve. And in little ways here and there, he started to think more about the family, really started to care. And he started feeling more love. By acting, loving, he was feeling love. And Helen, after a couple months, said, I want to thank you for, and he said, for what? She said, I want to thank you for really caring and rising to the occasion to build a stronger relationship with me and the children. And she said, I also want to say thank you for everything you're doing because I've kind of was blinded. You do a lot for us. You're always fixing things in the house. You work for us. You go to this job every day. So I want to thank you and appreciate all the things that you're doing too. Guruji used to quote Shakespeare, assume a virtue if you have it not. Assume a virtue if you have it not. We can talk to God even if you don't feel like it. You can meditate. You don't have to feel like meditating to meditate. You won't be damaged emotionally. You won't need therapy even though you're doing something you didn't really want to do. We can train ourselves to sit to meditate, and it does bring love eventually. As you turn within, it starts to connect you. The heart seems to open up. That's been my experience. And many of you here have told me that too. Your heart begins to open when you meditate. So we can assume a virtue if we have it not. And Guruji said, no matter how well you think of someone or how close you are to that person, it is important to sweeten that relationship with good manners and thoughtfulness. It's important to sweeten that relationship with good manners and thoughtfulness. Then friendship becomes truly wonderful and enduring. So friendships with other people and friendship with God. Friendship with the Guru. I think of God as mother sometimes, but sometimes I think of it, this representative of God, the Guru, who introduces us to the divine. I remember Sri Dayamata urging the monastics, she would regularly meet with us, and she said, get into the habit of telling God that you love Him. It seems strange when you first do it, but it starts to become real, your relationship, and you start noticing you're being guided in life by this divine intelligence that cares about us. So some of the things that I do that I've found helpful from the teachings, I will pause at different times and try to tune in. When I'm driving, I've developed this habit. If I hit a red light, I keep my eyes open, but I will tune in and call on God and Guru. I've sort of trained myself to do that. We can train ourselves to tune in on a higher level. Makes meditation a lot easier when you do that, by the way. Once Guruji, he was walking on the grounds, and Brother Bhaktananda told us this story. He was walking on the grounds, and he came across Brother Bhaktananda, who was one of the senior monks, and he was, busy working in the garden. And Guruji came and he stopped, and the Guru said to him, every now and then, stop work, lift your eyes here and say, to yourself, for God and Guru, for God and Guru. It was a way to connect, a very practical thing that he could do to connect and reconnect to the divine. Why do we want to do this anyway? Why bother? God is the source of all love, joy, and peace, and divine intuitive direction. And if we have that connection, attunement with God and Guru, our lives are just a lot happier. We can deal with stress better. We can deal with everything a lot better having that connection with the infinite source. So, if you can tell yourself, I don't feel like meditating tonight, but I'm going to do it for you, Lord. See, this is one way. I don't want to do this, but I'll do it. It's like a relationship. I'd rather not, but okay. You're stepping out of yourself. Anytime we step out of the ego and try to go to a higher level, that's powerful and reconnects us to the divine and our inner strength. So we're worried about the future. I'm going to give this to you. I'll do my best, but I'm going to give it to you. I know you're watching over me. You're watching and you're guiding me, so I'm going to trust that I'll do my best, but then I know you're going to take care and help me. And you'll notice you are guided. If you're at all receptive, you get a feeling to go in a certain direction. It's not accidental. God is guiding us. The more we're in tune and receptive, the easier it is for Him to help us. In meditation, I found, and this is from Sri Dayamata, just churning the ether, as he would say, when you, just for 5 seconds, call deeply on God, or for 20 seconds in meditation, after the practice of the techniques, really call on God. Churn the ether. From my experience, this really gets results. If you don't even feel it, you're assuming a virtue of this devotion and you call on God, you start to feel it. When as a younger monk, I realized I had a knack for chanting. I felt a connection with chanting. And so I thought, let me work at this. Let me really work and get good at this, because saints had found God through mantra and through chanting. And, Chaitanya, this saint in India, that's what he did. He was in ecstasy chanting. So I thought, let me work at this. So I worked at the technique. So I don't know what I don't even think about now the keyboard. Am I on sync? Is my voice, am I in tune? I've just worked at it enough and I've given that part up. Now I'm just connecting to the vibration of God and that chant. The vibration of that chant, there's a definite vibration in these chants. And if you can get beyond yourself and really chant with your heart, then you start really feeling something. And so I got to the point where I could throw myself, whenever I chant, I'm throwing myself into it. I've just trained myself. Now, this is not everybody's thing, and I understand that, but it's my thing. I get into that, I've worked at it, and I really get results from it. And if I'm not chanting, it's the same thing with inwardly calling on God, throwing yourself into it, assuming the virtue of intense devotion will bring it. You'll start to feel it. Just as if you assume the virtue of a great relationship, a loving relationship with someone, you keep working at it, it will get stronger. It will get better. Guruji had said, I will radiate love and goodwill to others that I may open a channel for God's love to come to me. I will radiate love and goodwill to others. We can, in meditation, especially, but it can be any time, but especially when you're meditating, radiating, try sending out anything you're feeling, peace, love, joy. You can radiate that out to others, and they will may not know exactly what's going on, but they're going to feel something. There's no distance in consciousness. We can visualize someone that's not even on the earth plane. They've passed away. You're still connecting to them. You can pray for others and radiate. You saw that video. Some of you have seen the video that just came out, a talk I'd given here on healing. Radiating out, feeling you're sending. If you have peace in your heart, you can give that to others. You can radiate that. Before I entered the order, I used to experiment. I still do. I like to experiment with the teachings and see, do these things work for me? There's certain things that really resonate, like chanting, or you may find something that really resonates with you in the teachings, and you want to go deeper with that. And so this idea of radiating came to me, of sending and trying to, we do it when we send healing vibrations, but can I send peace and love and upliftment to others? And I was sitting in a car in the back seat one time, and there were a couple of friends. There was another friend on there, so there was about 4 of us. And I decided to see if I could send peace and upliftment to this passenger, not to the driver, but to the passenger. Didn't know what would happen. And so I started feeling peace, and then I would radiate it. When you give something away, you get more of it. If you give love, you get. If you give peace, you get more of it. There's an infinite source, okay? So I started to just, without saying anything, I just started feeling peace and joy, and I radiated that to this person. And he started looking around, and then he finally turned around and looked at me. And he said, "Are you doing that?" And I said, "What?" And then he turned around, and again, I would radiate. And he could definitely, there was something going on and he kept looking back at me, and I think it was just proving to me that we can do what Guruji said, radiate love and goodwill and peace and joy to others if we want to. Using these teachings, I think, is pretty important, making them work. I think I've told this story about, I was a brand new monk. I was in Encinitas, and we were supposed to go up to Los Angeles to the Hollywood Temple. There was an event there, and only the monks were attending this. It was some sort of vow ceremony. I didn't know what it was, and we drove up. We hit heavy traffic, so we were a little late. The ceremony had begun, and we sat way in the back, and I was sitting there, just enjoying being there, and I heard this monk chanting up in front. He was chanting. And I started feeling tremendous love in my heart. I really started, and it was the way he was chanting. I wasn't familiar with the chant. He was chanting, I think, joy, joy, joy. I had never heard it before, but I was feeling something in my heart as he chanted, and finally I thought, I've got to know, who is that? And I happened to be on the aisle, so I leaned out, and there was a monk. It was Brother Devananda. Had his head back, he's chanting, tears pouring down his eyes. He was gone. And I thought, wow, I want to be like that. I want to be able to chant and really connect on a vibrational level with that chant and with God and Guru. Because he was an example to me, a tremendous example. I turned out, bhava means mood of love. Bhava, a mood of love, or bhava samadhi would be ecstatic love for God. Bhavananda meant bliss in this mood of love for God. And he had it. I remember Dayama said in a satsang, she was talking about devotion, we have to have greater devotion. She said, and Brother Bhavananda is one of these people that has it. And he was so embarrassed. He shrank down in his chair, and we all looked at him and said, wow. And I knew she was right about that. Dayamata said, It is said in the Hindu scriptures that just taking the name of God can give one salvation. Mantra, repeating the name of God, Om Guru, Jai Guru. When I first read this, I did not understand how it could be possible. But I learned that it is possible when behind that mental prayer is all the hunger and longing of your soul. My Lord, I love only you. I want only you. I crave only you. So this is just a reminder to all of us, we can do more. We can keep working at our relationship with others, and most important, with God and Guru, deepen that relationship, finding ways to do that. I love chants that use mantra, Om Guru, Om Guru. I often chant because these, I can instantly get into it. I can instantly start, there's a vibration to this mantra. An ancient Sanskrit mantra, Jai Guru. It's the same thing. Jai Guru, victory to the Guru. It's a mantra which can change you.
This has been a production of Self-Realization Fellowship, a non-profit organization founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1920. For more information about Self-Realization Fellowship and Paramahansa Yogananda, please visit yogananda.org.